Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Once Upon a Time in London. My name is Harry Nijjar, your host. I've got a couple of guests with me. I've got co-host Jan and guest Richard. Jan, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience? I know they know who you are, but I feel like we should still do the intro
We
anyway.
still do, yeah. My name is Jan Kodabash. I work for Universal Technology Solutions, and I'm a co-host with Harry.
Awesome. Richard, can you introduce yourself for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I'm Richard Fern. I work for an organization called Nephos Technologies, who's a data integrator, and known Jan for quite a few years. So thanks for the invite, Jan and Harry, to the event. Second time around, so really appreciate it. Thank you.
I know. No, thank you so much for joining. Just for the audience as well, my name is Harry, and I run a marketing agency in the Midlands. Work very closely with Jan, and we created this show last year. I think we must be into like the 15th or 16th show now. And we used to have these kind of conversations on Zoom in private. And I said to Jan, why don't we just broadcast it on LinkedIn and invite guests, talk about different topics. Today, I believe we're going to be talking about ML and AI. But Jan, do you want to paint the picture?
Well, yeah, I also want to just start off, Harry, by saying the show, and I did this last week, just so that people are aware, the show's just for any technology enthusiast that wants to come on. Not you can be an SME, you can be a student, even a chatbot if you want. Just come on the show. If you've got an opinion and you want to share it or discuss it, this is a platform for it. So please reach out to us if you've got any ideas or discussion topics that we can bring up.
100%. So we normally kick off just before the main topics with what we've been working on this week. So Jan, what do you want to give people an insight into what your week's been like?
Again, this week has been more and more. All we've seen this year is cost savings. Everyone wants to be a bit more efficient on costs. So and look at that, they've turned the lights out. Give me a minute.
You get up and wave.
We sat still for too long.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna clip this and put that on LinkedIn because that'll go viral. That'll go
quality time.
So I just had to go and put a 50p in. So we're back up for about another half an hour.
Cost saving. That was really good timing, actually. Cost saving, and then the light went off.
Yeah, there you go. So so that's all it was this week, as well as reconnecting with customers this year. Again, we're still we're coming towards the end of like Q1. So it's been interesting.
How about yourself, Richard?
Yeah, it's a similar environment on the basis that we're at the end of our fiscal year at the end of March. So not only trying to close the year out, it's been very much about planning for next year, planning for events that we're going to do, how we're going to do next year's quota as an organization, and really what technologies we're going to try and utilize to make sure that we get the best for our customers out of what we're trying to provide to them.
That's amazing. And for myself, I mean, I've been running my own agency for 4 years, making content and marketing strategies for lots of different businesses. I've suddenly started doing my own podcasts and my own content and shining the light on myself, which has been quite interesting. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And I'm trying to demolish my office, which is our current HQ, and build a 35-story building instead on that space. So that's another challenge I've set myself.
35-story building on top of your office.
Well, when I tell myself that, things happen. Either people go, "Oh, that's cool, Harry," or "That's impossible." It's really funny when I say that to people. it's interesting. Anyway, we will crack on with the show. Maybe ML and AI can help with that problem. But Jan, do you want to set the scene in terms of topics you want to discuss today?
So one of the topics, and I've got a poll going on this at the moment, is there's a lot of we try to stay away from AI and ML this week, but just couldn't keep away. So a question I had was, how will AI and ML help us become a more sustainable community? And I'm talking about I suppose human or even technology community. So there were a couple of things around this, and there was kind of 4 that I put on here. One is if we think the ability for consumers to make informed decisions based on a provider's ESG footprint. Another would be where we optimize, where it helps AI and ML help optimize a customer's processing, so to lower the carbon footprint, more from a ecological reducing carbon footprint from a sustainability perspective for the environment. And then helping organizations as they become more efficient, will this result in employees seeing the benefits of that, where they're allowed to have a better work-life balance? And that's one in particular. I think out of those ones, I won't mention the fourth one. It was actually, as a joke, allow companies to hire based on candidates' gas emissions rating. But that third one, where we start to see companies become more efficient, but actually allow now a better work-life balance for employees. How real is that? How much are they looking into that? Was that's where I'd like to see it go. But what do you guys out of those ones, which ones do you see taking off more?
I'll let Richard, you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I think actually it's got to be enriching to humans, AI and ML. It can't turn us into sedentary sofa surfing film watchers. The reality is any advancement in technology should help us and enrich our lives, be that, to your point, Jan, making more health time, more social time for families, be able to give you more family life, because I think we've all lost that over a certain period of time because we're all so busy.
Yeah.
And advancements in technology, machine learning without doubt has got to be beneficial to us all in respect of genomics or any pharmaceutical component, which will really help us from a life aspect. But I think more importantly, that machine learning to cut down the mundane task to a certain extent, to be able to allow us to be much more proficient and efficient in the way that we do our job, so we can spend more time family wise. That's what I'm looking at, really.
Yeah, I kind of resonate with that. I think if I look at my day, in terms of literally just booked a train to go to London to a conference, literally did other tasks, little tiny things, which I think I don't need to be doing these. This could be done by a virtual assistant, or actually in the future AI or ML. I don't know. There could be something that replaces all these mundane tasks. So I think we as a workforce should theoretically get more productive.
Yeah.
As these tools come in.
But that's exactly my point here, is that from what I've been reading, everything is about getting more efficient, allowing us to do more, but it looks like we're going to carry on trying to align ourselves with that speed of technology, so trying to keep up with it. And this is where, do we think it's going to give us a better work-life balance? Possibly. The way discussions have been going so far, probably not. Unless
Jan, you're talking about cultures of companies, and you're talking about company culture and company ethics. I've seen a big study recently where companies have deployed a 4-day week and seen massive improvement. So if the data says actually 4-day weeks are better for employees and employees are more productive, are the companies then gonna take that on board and do it?
I think in that instance, are they not asking people, say for example, to do a few more hours in each week that compensate for that day they miss? In this, what we're talking about here is AI actually becoming more efficient, helping us organize our days or get things done quicker. So we have, within the same type of hours, we're actually reducing the hours we work across the week. And I haven't seen a lot of that being discussed when AI or ML, it's all the other way of how great it is and how well it's going to. I think it's about organizations and company cultures changing to make sure they're focusing on a work-life balance for employees and sustainability. This is where it goes back to sustainability of our employees, our workers, rather than I always thought sustainability really was just more about the environment, and how we box things up and things like that. But sustaining our employees,
I think it also, I do see how I think a lot of companies, technology companies, service companies are going to come up with dashboards and things to show a business, you know what, with this AI and ML, we've realized you're not working correctly. There's all these things that you could improve on.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen. I think it will be on businesses to be more agile and flexible with how they're doing things rather than
Which
being
I think
stuck in old ways.
History's proven humans have the capability to identify those areas. And AI and ML is nothing without humans feeding and watering it. You can look back at the old mills up in Manchester, where you used to have hundreds of mill workers running an operative mill on its own, and a miller per machine. And then you build technology in so a miller can run 20 machines. Suddenly your productivity goes through the roof. And I think machine learning, AI, it has been overused in the last however many weeks because of ChatGPT, and the news has just amplified around that AI and machine learning component. But the reality is it's technology. It's technology that we as humans feed and weed and water to make sure, hopefully, that it's the benefit for us. Because the reality is we will advance even further.
Here's a little thing for you, both of you as well. I saw, as an influencer that I say influencer, business owner in America that I follow. He launched a really successful business, and he used to work for Facebook as well in the early days. He said in a tweet something along the lines of, the future is the solopreneur, the individual. So entrepreneur, but someone who doesn't have any employees, just uses AI and ML and the tools available to build £1 billion business. Yeah. He fundamentally believes one person now can make £1 billion company.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Interesting concept, because you're right. It's how do we, as consumers, consume what we want nowadays? It tends to be very electronic. To your point, that actually influencers can gain revenue from just being online. It's not necessarily a product they're selling. It's just a video stream. It could be playing video games. It could be, this is my life. Just watch the video online and subscribe, and they're going to make money from that source as well. So the capability is definitely getting there. $1 billion company as one person, who knows? And when we'll see it.
So let me ask you, is this going to be a decision that will, or an opt-in or opt-out type of decision, or what type of company we want to work for? Do we want to go to a company that is going to have 3 employees basically, that all maybe remotely working, where there's less interaction, but the company's making, like you say, $1 billion, or it's worth $1 billion? It's great, although well, I'd like to say that we'll benefit more from interacting with our own human community.
Yeah.
But what do I know? I mean, maybe sitting around a bunch of computers, maybe I can always be right then, because that's how our program to be. Whenever I ask a question, I'll be right. But I'm sure that'll die out soon.
What's interesting about that, you mentioned like choice, right? People are going to have a choice where they work, and the choice is going to become really stark between somewhere that values more human interaction and a company just which values productivity. It doesn't care how it's done, how the money's made. We're just going to make the choices that we see. So it's an interesting one.
So we haven't actually seen the results of what this AI and ML type of direction is going to take us. We haven't seen the results of it. We've seen from social media, they say there are reports that say it's linked to some type of mental health issues, or wellness deterioration for certain people. I don't know if it's directly correlated, but there has been an increase in that. We actually don't know what the results are from having less and less interaction with humans will be eventually. And so we may be forced to come back around and say, you know what, this is not doing our community much.
And I think that's a really valid point, Jan, on the basis that we know from being in technology that you are encased in your own echo chamber when it comes online. you are fed similar information of what you're looking at already. So that disparity of society can be accelerated through machine learning, on the basis that if you're looking at fluffy little pussycats online and that's all you do all day, you're going to get more fluffy pussycats come to you online, and that's it. You're not necessarily expanding your knowledge. But also, if fluffy pussycats suddenly rule the world, it's only those people in that community which are suddenly the rulers of the world because they look at fluffy pussycats, whereas those people that look at dogs may be ostracized. It's just, and this is where I would hope, and this is a human hope, that machine learning and AI never takes over in regards of our lives and how we work our lives. And you've got to have that reality human culture check, because otherwise we all get stuck in our own echo chambers, because we're just fed what we're already looking at. You don't expand your knowledge. You don't build outside of what you already know, or the subject that you already know, and learn more about only that subject and not the other view and the other perspective.
And so, and this is, I mean, I said earlier on when we were talking that I wanted to kind of stay away from AI machine learning for this week, although it's, it was almost impossible. But I think at the moment it is more of a news item.
Yes.
And that's where everyone's getting wrapped up about it. I think, and I've got faith in, the human community, that we always kind of see and do the right thing eventually. And this is going to be another capability that we're going to, it's an innovation. We're going to use it as a capability to enhance what we do. I think there's enough of us that know and have been, from history tells us that as long as we're using it in the right way and allowing us to progress in the right way, it will be definitely something that's going to be well worthwhile, and it's going to move us as a community forward. Not at the moment. I think it's just more about news and scaremongering possibly. So I'm not too worried at that point. But for now, I think I'll listen to some of the discussions around how it's going to take us over. But I wanted to kind of just on one of the things where I think this is kind of key, is that where we're looking at providers' ESG footprint, having the ability to look at a provider's sustainability or environmental posture, how they operate their company, and having a choice on which companies we use. That might not be on the top of everyone's agenda to do, but as a consumer, it's probably going to become more and more important. So having AI and machine learning have that information available to us, whereas at the moment it's probably us going on the internet and finding out, having that accessible to us will provide, make us better consumers and eventually be better for the environment. So that one there, I think, is secondary for me after it comes to work-life balance. But
it's an interesting one that you raise. I think it's hard for a company to currently benchmark its ESG, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. I mean, what's interesting for me, if you look at it, how many people actually care about the environment right now? Like, if you just boil it down to the audience in the UK, like how many people actually care? When you come to buying decisions on clothes or your toiletries or your tech or your services provider, how much do you care about the fact they're impacting the environment? I would say it's quite low at the moment.
I mean,
but it's going to go on the increase.
Let me ask you, when you go and buy a drink, or say for example, you go and buy a burger, and it has the nutrients, labeled, and one of them says, I don't know, this, I don't know, 50% less fat. Whereas previously we didn't have that information. Now, sometimes just to make yourself feel good, look, I want a burger, but I'm going to make myself feel good because I'm going to get the 50% less fat.
I'm going to get the vegan one.
So you go now. If that's applied to being better for the environment, if now we can say, actually, I want to go. Should I shop at Marks or Spencer's, or I was just about to say CNA there.
That went quite a while ago, Jim.
Okay. But I don't know.
Primark. They took over CNA.
And before I enter the door, Marks or Spencer's is, it's got a health rating or an ESG rating. I said, you know what? I'm just going to go and buy my socks from there at the moment, because so that's something, because now
But
we've got more information. Yeah.
there's,
So those,
I think there's a balance though, isn't there? Because certainly in the current fiscal climate, for a lot of people, price is king compared to sustainability. And that is just the nature of where we're at globally. I think people don't necessarily have that choice. They'd like to go and have that more expensive product because it's going to last longer, but the reality is they don't have the ability to buy simple daily goods that they need to. It tends to be, what can I afford, rather than what's good for the planet. So I think you're right, Harry. I think there's less than we think of people who care about sustainability. I think as parents, you have much more awareness of it because you've got an offspring that you want to have the planet around for them in the future. That's not to put anything against adults that don't have children, but the reality is it's front and foremost in your mind, because that planet needs to be around for your offspring moving forward.
Yeah,
I think we all need to take more
Richard,
care of it.
Sorry to cut you off, Richard. I was going to say that the problem we've got with the cost of living crisis now is, you know, a parent looks at, and also any families look at, okay, I've got a choice to be more sustainable, or I've got a choice to save money.
Right. And it's a really tough choice, because the reality is if you're not sustainable, there'll be no planet to worry about, could I afford it or not anyway?
Yeah.
But then also you're worried about something you can't really,
yeah,
you're going to be there if you can't afford to feed your family right now.
Yeah.
So there's almost this prioritization, isn't it? Which is the challenge.
Yeah, and that's culturally where we all need to make decisions as human beings. What we're doing is not for the benefit of us, the here and now. It's for the benefit of the future generations. It's for the benefit of the future planet. And you know, Greta Thunberg has been phenomenal in raising the agenda around sustainability. And she's a great spokesperson for the younger generation who think that the older generation don't give a damn about the planet. Because commerce has been commerce, and yes, it swings and roundabouts where shareholder value is king, but actually, thankfully, the younger generation say, well, actually, shareholder value necessarily isn't king. How sustainable is that organization? Because if there's no planet, there'll be no companies in the future anyway.
Yeah.
And it needs that shift.
I do think, and maybe we end on this, but I have seen more and more of the larger organizations have ESG as a major agenda, and they're holding providers or vendors accountable now. So it's going to become more and more difficult for them to get on procurement lists. It's going to be harder for people to buy off certain people. So they've definitely raised the agenda. Maybe it's the smaller players that are going to suffer at the moment, and you know, on that part. But that will, you know, be interesting to see how that works out. But yeah, so I think we've covered that one quite well, I think. And Richard, there was something you brought up beforehand about some data. I think you called it data normalization or virtualization. Yeah. Do you want to just give us a quick? Oh, maybe we'll touch on some of that.
Yes, this sort of lies into ESG to a certain extent. We've seen it with a lot of organizations who've got either multiple data sources in their own company, or have a lot of M&A activity in their own organization. So there's existing data sources from the acquisition company that they've acquired. Now, why throw that away just for the fact that actually we bought this company, therefore you have to transfer to our platform? Because there could be another 2, 3, 4 years worth of usage of that existing data component. So actually data virtualization does spin into that ESG side as well, where you, in essence, have an abstraction layer for the data consumer, be they internal or external. You've got that capability to keep that standard always. Your query goes into that abstraction layer. That abstraction layer then knows what to go and ask the back-end data source the question to be able to deliver that result back. So it saves data transfers from M&A, it saves human re-education if you're changing back-end data sources, because the reality is that front-end abstraction layer always gives you that same front-end view, no matter what's going on the back end. So think of a swan, really. you've got a graceful swan swimming on the lake, and underneath the feet are going 9 a dozen, and there's loads of things going on that you're not aware of because you just see this graceful swan on the lake. And that's where really I see data virtualization being that ease of use for the consumer, the user, to be able to run their query, but at the back end, it's irrespective to them. They just know they get the result back. So that's where we've been seeing data virtualization work quite well, but also it fits into that ESG side.
Yeah, I like that type of design model, because especially when it's a customer facing solution,
Yeah.
because whatever happens in the background is completely transparent to them, and
Yeah.
you can continually innovate or change on the other side from a provider perspective without actually or providing minimal impact to the consumer.
Yes.
Whereas if you don't have that abstraction layer, I understand it adds a piece of complexity, but if you don't have that, you're always having to communicate anything to, or you're impacting your consumer when you've got that type of. So you're talking about from a data perspective, even from a connectivity perspective, that applies that model. I think it's a good model to have. But if you look at that data virtualization, that also allows where people are transferring data to the cloud.
Yep.
Does that also, is that a model where people have kind of like hybrid setups where they still have some on-prem, where they're just going through a kind of migration, which is going to take them a lot longer? This allows them to still have that single front. Is that
Absolutely
one area?
Yeah, and you're right. It's ideal in those scenarios, because the reality, the biggest challenge for most organizations is training for its employees, and how to use that data. So transition to cloud could mean from an on-prem ERP system to a data lake somewhere, a completely different interface. The reality is, to your point, using that data virtualization structure, the user still has the same interface, and they can move it from on-prem to cloud. They can move it from their on-prem ERP system to a completely different data warehouse in the cloud, but the user still sees the same front end. So it enables migrations, it enables for transition of applications, because it provides better resources to them as an organization. But the reality is that data virtualization, the user sees no change or very minimal change, because you'll know, Jan, from deploying technology in organizations, they sound great, they sound perfect, but if the users aren't using them, it's worthless spending the money. So the easier you can make it for the user to consume, be they internal or external, the more ROI you're going to get out of that back-end IT purchase, because the user doesn't see that change. Oh no, not another system to learn about, not another piece of software to go and log into. It's how can you make it as easy as possible for the consumer?
Yeah. So can I ask where you've seen this? Are people having to kind of after the fact add this type of abstraction layer just to kind of serve that purpose, for example, in acquisition? Because it's not a bad idea from new implementations, where there's new implementations of systems, adding that type of abstraction layer to kind of future-proof yourself. Is probably a good way of doing it. And I'm going to go back to a connectivity example where you have like an F5 sitting behind multiple servers that it can serve, that provides you redundancy. But having that as a kind of day one setup allows you in the just future proofs you, because if you do want to put things in the cloud or migrate, what are you seeing? Are you seeing it as more of a people adding it as a after the fact kind of
we've seen it a lot, obviously, on the latter, on the basis that most organizations realize their data sets are very disparate. It could be Excel spreadsheets, it could be a database, it could be an ERP system, it could be a CRM system, on-prem or in cloud. There's so many different data sources, and it tends to be after the fact of how can we abstract that? So when somebody runs a query on Richard Fern, what business has he done with us as an organization? What information do we have on that client? And how can we help know our customers better to provide a better service to them? But those data sets are very disparate. So you either pull everything into a big data lake, which is a massive, massive exercise. I don't know of anyone that's put all of their data into one data lake, because I think by the time you think you've done it, there's more data elsewhere which you don't know about. You need to bring that data source in, and it gives the people the ability to at least present their data to the internal consumer or the external consumer in a single source. And it has to be after the fact, because as a new company, you try and make it simple as possible from day dot, but then they're going to get to the level where somebody's downloaded a load of data from a database and stuck it in an Excel spreadsheet, and part of the organization is running off that Excel spreadsheet, or a different database is more relevant to this part of the business compared to this part of the business. So I think that data virtualization is going to be much more useful going forward to organizations where they want to abstract their disparate data sets to present it as a single source into one area that people can get access to without having to relearn all the time.
So are there any particular kind of like off the shelf type of products, or have you got an example of if someone was looking to do this, what area of technology would they be looking at? Like I said, from a connectivity, it's probably like a load balancer or something like that. From a data virtualization, what type of
so we use within Nephos, we use a technology called Denodo. They're originally a northern Spain company. They've been going since about the late 90s, I think it is. They're now headquartered in Palo Alto in California, but they are I would say, market leader around data virtualization, because it sounds really simple, but actually it's quite complicated, because that back end, you have to have connectors into so many different data sources. And it's not just literally pointing Denodo at that data source. It needs to know query in to Denodo means query out to that data source to be able to deliver that data back to the front end to the consumer. So it's a really complicated piece of abstraction, but they've been doing it for so many years, Jan, that actually they've got it to a T, and they know what to do in that data virtualization space.
Okay, well, that's quite interesting. I might look that up in a bit more detail. I can see that being a lot more widely used, but yeah, interesting on that one. Well, I think we come up to the half hour. Harry, how I saw you listening to a lot of that. That's kind of a new territory for you, I think. Some of this.
I try to stay in my lane, you see. I don't like no clue what is being told. I was observing, listening. You guys are obviously deep into the tech side, and I like to see it from the consumer perspective.
Well, the thing is, although you say we're deep into the tech, like I said, the show's for network enthusiasts and anyone really looking at it. But from my perspective, I don't know much about how it's being done, but I understand that concept of actually abstracting a layer away, and especially when it's consumer facing. I like that idea. I like that from a design perspective, because I think it works. Where if, like Richard said, if there was an acquisition and you've got to start changing things in the background, that's what you want to try and avoid. If you've got an acquisition, you've got to change, you want to quickly onboard that company, or you want to quickly onboard them. And these kind of technologies allowed you to get up and running very quickly. So that's, I couldn't say that I don't understand how they're doing it, Denodo, but I like the concept of it. And once it sounds like a good concept, you then go and see if what they say is what they can actually deliver. So but yeah, okay. Maybe they want to get on the show, Richard. We can have a deeper dive with them. But okay.
Cool. All right. Well, Jan and Richard, thank you so much. Great show as all. Same time next week, 1 o'clock. We'll have a think about the topics, Jan. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I'll be asking how your planning permission's going on for your 35-story building as well, Harry.
Please do. It's a journey I'm embarking on. I'm going to be a bit scared.
It's going to be a long one by the sounds of it.
It's going to be a long one. Yeah. Good fun one.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.